We're back. Season 6, Episode 17. Ogres, or Dungeons and Discord, excuse me. An episode about ogres and oubliettes. Apparently ogres exist in MLB. This is the episode during which Discord, Spike, and Big Macintosh play D&D. If I need to explain anything else, then you don't know what I'm talking about. This is a weird one. This is a weird one for me. So let's start at the beginning. First of all, we have our good night tour. Good night tour? Good overnight goodwill tour of Yakistan, which a little bit questionable, but at the same time, I guess it's better than, war. So I'll take it. Discord, of course, still has issues being honest. Real talk for a second. I kind of have that same problem. No, really. If you've probably seen this happen on stream. Because if someone says something like, say, hey, Lore, do you like Star Trek? I will not say yes. I will say, no, I hate Star Trek and everything about it, and I spit on it. And I try to make my sarcasm a little bit more obvious to make it clear that I am being sardonic or sarcastic, but I do have that admitted vocal tick of when someone asks something or someone presents something that is obviously not true, then I tend to flip the opposite way with it. I've been trying to stop doing that, especially since, well, that actually led to some real-life drama with my step-parents, an incident I actually still haven't forgiven them for, to be completely honest with you. So anyways, I'm kind of with Discord in that moment. Am I even live? I look like I'm live. Whatever. We're just going to keep talking to the camera and assume somebody's there. Meanwhile, we see opposite Fluttershy. First of all, I keep noticing expressions because the animation is just wonderful. And there's that bit where she's just glaring. And as he's talking, she's just glare. How dare you? And she doesn't say anything until finally she's this is opposite Fluttershy. And I'm sick of being nice all the time. Okay, let's fix that. Let's fix that. And of course she's like, oh. And just, what's funny, though, is if you watch her cheeks, not only do they blush, they blush and then get bigger for like half a millisecond there. It's great. Anyways, moving on. He decides to change around the... It's not my fault they decided to send their train route through an active volcano. And Fluttershy just gives him the eyebrow. Very Applejack. Love the eyebrow. So... This then leads us to an interesting technique. You keep what you're doing a secret by keeping the fact that you're doing it an open secret. Yeah, we have a super secret guys' night that everyone knows about. And because everyone knows about it, they don't know what you actually do on it. Like, did you notice that? That they actually did keep the fact that they play D&D a secret? Just interesting. And I totally relate to that. I'm sure 100% of the people who like this show relate to that, because I know exactly what it's like to feel like you can't be honest about things you enjoy, or to, not talk about things that you like for fear of how other people will think of you, or what other people's mockery or reaction will be. Now, obviously, in this exact moment, I am referencing MLP. But I could say that, I mean, I have so many things in my past. The obvious ones, Star Trek, video games in general, Believe it or not, sports is also on that list. I'm into sports. Basketball, Formula One are the two big ones, and football, European football, obviously. And I bring that up because that's a lot of these things have gotten a lot more tolerant. It's more okay to be open about this stuff lately. But at the same time, you would not believe how many people in geek circles have ostracized me or attempted to for being into sports. Or physical fitness, for that matter. Weightlifting and taking care of the body and how the body functions is something that's been a hobby of mine since high school. Actually, probably closer to 7th grade. Oh yeah, speaking of which, voot if you haven't. Make sure you voot. Exclamation mark, voot if you haven't. You say that jokingly, Venters. I've gotten that, not from the show, but from friends or from people who are, I guess friends is a bit too high of a word, but you get my point. Like acquaintances, people within the social circle are like, "You're into football? Yeah." And then I start explaining what offsides are, and they're just looking at me weird, and then I have to kill Raskor, and it's just horrible. Every time I have to kill Raskor. I just thought I'd share that because it makes a degree of sense and is rather, relatable. Anyways, I'd like to think we're getting a little bit more away from that in modern times. That's entirely... Yes, we did, Mr. Red. In fact, it should already be live on YouTube. Hang on just a sec, Lord Harriman. I'll answer you. Let me finish my thought here. I'd like to think that we've moved beyond that. It's entirely possible that I've just moved beyond that. And I just don't give a damn anymore. And so, whether you judge me or not, go to hell, But I would like to think that that overall it has gotten better. If nothing else from anecdotal evidence, I'd like to say that, in general, it's more okay to like things than it was back in the 80s. You know what I mean? That being said, obviously there are still gatekeepers. In fact, I'm going to share a story about one of them when we go through the rest of this video, as we talk about a later element of this particular episode. Anyways, let me answer Lord Harriman's question really quick here. So, no, Lord Harriman. I am not streaming now. You know what I mean. And that's to work on the audit project. And I've got 2 other things to do after I finish the audit project, which will be the next couple of days. And then I can either go back to streaming games, and then in November take a larger break than usual. Break. I shouldn't use that word. It's such an inaccurate word. Take a larger pause in streaming than usual. Or I can extend this pause in streaming that we're currently in the middle of and get those stuff done now. And then, November will be just the normal floodgate cycle. That's the option. I'm doing this year one way or the other. The question is, hiatus is a good word. Do I take an extended hiatus now or take an extended hiatus in November? One or the other. So, there's this bit where he's got his face in the book. Oh, please don't come over here. Please don't come over. Please don't come over. Please don't come over. Hi! I'll admit I actually don't get that one personally. I bet there's plenty of people who do. Oh, God, please don't interact with me. Please don't interact with me. I'm busy. In fact, I bet some of you would know the most common method, because I've seen people do this. Of course, now I'm being covered. Hang on. There we go. This is the technique I see most people nowadays do when they don't want to interact with other people. Now, I have proof positive that there are people who do this, and they're not actually doing anything. They are pretending to browse their phone, or they're pretending to respond. Occasionally they'll reach over, poke at something, go back to it. And they'll reach over and poke something and go back to it. I've literally seen people do that. Thank you, Hideyori, very much for the sub, as always. Much obliged. I don't suppose you know where you'd like that to go, in terms of increasing interest. Dealer's choice, that I can do. Thank you. So, they come over, and, he discords for a little bit. First of all, why does he call Celestia KK? I mean, I get it, it's Queen Celestia, but wouldn't that be QC? Instead of... Second of all, this is funny, if I could just share a bit of an anecdote here. So, Spike and Big Mac are clearly hesitant about inviting him, and even after he has left are like... And they feel like, you could see on their faces, oh God, this is a terrible idea. And they're only doing this for the sake of being nice to him, and they don't actually want to invite him. Why is that relevant? Well, because that's showing. Later on in the episode, they will tell the exact same point. Now, I've talked about this a bit before. This show specifically has actually really gotten me into the idea of showing, then telling. Something, and the reason this is funny to me Yeah, you can get it on Netflix or Amazon, Nemesis. I watch it on Amazon. This is funny to me because back in my older videos, I'm doing the audit right now. Let's organize my thoughts. I'm a little tired. Doing the audit, and part of the audit involves watching old VODs of myself on fast forward, so I sound like a chipmunk. Really sick of my own voice. Usually I have like 4 or 5 videos up at a time, because I'm like saying how the save system works. So I've got all these games going all at the same time, trying to watch the videos at double speed to see when I actually save the game, to see how the save system works. Stuff like that, right? Really boring stuff, don't mind it, but necessary stuff for the purposes of the audit. The reason I bring this up, though, is that there was a specific game where we go through it, and past me says, see, what I hate about this is they show what's happening, and then they tell it, and that just irritates me. And I remember laughing, because my opinion has completely flipped on that. There's obviously telling don't showing sucks. That's still obviously clearly bad writing. But showing then telling is something that can work pretty well. Especially if you do the telling properly and you do the showing properly. And again, MLP does this in spades constantly. Where they show something and then later on they explain it for the people who didn't catch it. Yeah, the telling at that point is just a reinforcement, or it's for people not really paying attention. No judgment. They could be young. They could be distracted. They could be at the end of a very long day where they've been dealing with a lot of crap and they just want to unwind for a bit, right? So for the people who are paying attention, we notice and we're like, ah, cool. And for the people not, there's the other thing. And for both, there's the reinforcement. So, yeah, I'm with it. I just wanted to comment on that really quick. Anyway, so they show, then tell. Actually, they show and then like 20 minutes later they tell. It's much later in the episode. So I've had guys' nights before. Not with guys, with women. Just non-stop sex parties. No, actually I'm not kidding about the female part. I am kidding about the second part. I mean, right? It actually was a pretty regular thing for me back in school, especially right up until I started college when I stopped having spare time. But, you know, going over to, you know, Rob's house or going over to Jane's house or whatever to hang out, I shouldn't name actual names, in order to just sit around and play video games or play board games or play P&P was a pretty regular thing in my growing up. You know, I'm with it. You know, I just wanted to comment on that because it's kind of cool. Some of you may have seen Board Game Night, which used to happen every other Thursday, or every Thursday, depending on which time in history it is. And that was literally an attempt to recreate that in an online format, since, you know, I missed that kind of social interaction gaming thing. Which I suppose leaves me to the D&D section, the actual part when they start playing D&D. First of all, real talk. If I had Q-level powers, I would totally be flashy. I would. Just for fun. Alright, I'm walking into, very funny workout code. I'm walking into a room, and, you know, so, just right off the top, I'm gonna make something up right off the top of my head. So, there's, like, this sudden burning wall of fire instead of the wall, and then the fire goes away and the wall is also gone. And I just kind of waltz on through. Like, hey, what's up? Oh, shoot, hang on. And then I would put my finger up, and as I run my finger down the invisible, you know, the not wall, the wall would draw behind me and re-render until it was all the way back there. I was like, hi, I'm here. I would totally do stuff like that. No doubt. Just whatever. I'm a showy person, I admit it. I'm the person who likes to be in the center stage. It's even one of my needs, which I'm not going to bore you about right now. Anyways, so he does that. He's like, I've got the rowdiest establishments in Ponyville. It's this tiny list. That's great. That's a depends on my mood, S.A. Ross. That's a world building plus right there. It's such a minor thing and it's a gag, but that is actually world building right there. 2 establishments. 2 in Ponyville. Anyways. So then it's like, okay, we've got to go play games. And he starts talking about charades. And Spike says, no, I'm talking about real games. Yeah, I still have that attitude. I'll admit it. Monopoly's not a real game. Fight me. I'm not even joking, though. There is such a gargantuan difference. I don't even mean it in an elitist way. There's just a gargantuan difference between down here, which is like party games, then here, which is like not good board games. I don't know how a better way to put that. And then there's up here, which is actual board games, which have actual... And they don't have to be super ridiculously complex. They don't have to be massively... You know, like they don't have to be Arkham Asylum, which is a 4-hour affair every time you do it. It has tons of rules. They just have to have some depth to them. Like Catan has some depth to it. Catan is actually probably a little bit lower tier, if I'm being completely honest, but it's still an actual board game. For years, we've talked about this before, for years I've been wanting to come up with better terms for this, because I don't agree with these terms at all. Because it's just different gradients. There's nothing wrong with a party game. The reason I call them party games is because they're party games. They're stuff you play when you've got 15 people and you just want to burn some time before the pizza shows up, right? Party game. Done. You know? Nothing wrong with that. Now, these middle ones, I will go ahead and admit I am a little bit biased against the middle things, because board games like Life or Sorry or Monopoly are bad. I'm sorry. It's not just that they lack complexity or anything. It's that there's just they're just there. They are effectively party games. They're like an in-between of party games and board games at that point. It's like, okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting way off on a tangent here. Yeah, Weouts is absolutely correct. You know, like Life is roll the dice and laugh at stuff. Munchkin would be, I'd say Munchkin is actually a board game. Again, kind of low tier, but you know. Yeah, exactly, Ventures. It's not interactive. Most of those middle tier board games are roll a dice and watch the results, and then roll a dice and watch the results. Sometimes they don't even involve rolling a dice. Sometimes they're just watch the results. Now, there are exceptions, obviously. Trivial Pursuit, for example, which is actually effectively a party game, if we push down a little bit. Or Sideways. I don't know. You get the point. And also, Weouts mentioned earlier, you know, there's good party games and bad party games, which is absolutely correct as well. You know, like, for example, any of the... there's a term for it. There's a specific genre. It's like a social bluffing game, I think is the term. Like, when you're playing Werewolf, or the Witch game I can't think of. Salem something. Or, you know, my personal favorite, Secret Hitler. You know, etc. Those technically are party games, but those are really, really good party games because there's so much involved in it, and it's so interactive, and it's all about the people just playing off of each other, and blah, 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 you know. Hunter. Lol, Larian. Can you be Secret Hitler? I mean, I was. Oh, Betrayal on the House of the Hill is a great board game. What's funny is Betrayal on the House of the Hill looks like it's a super complex one and a super long one, but it actually isn't. It's just, it has a lot of depth to it, and has a lot of replay. Love that game. Anyway, sorry, getting way off tangent here. Let's bring it back. Bring it back. Point being, I'm kind of with Spike on this one. There is a difference between Pictionary, especially with 3 people, and D&D. You know, they are playing, and they want to play a board game. They want to play actual tabletop. Again, I don't have a better term. But, right, they want to play something in this upper category that I just talked about. With it. This then leads to... hang on, looking at my notes here. This then leads to a couple of interesting little scenes. Hello, XDX. Liar's Dice. That's a good party game. That's a good party game. If you don't want to organize. Because you can just play it immediately. Welcome to the stream, by the way. You caught me in a weird time. I'm in the middle of a stream hiatus, technically. I know I'm streaming right now, but point being, we'll get back to streaming soon or later, depending on how the vote goes. Anyways. So, they start talking about P&P. Pen and paper, by the way, is what that stands for. I get that question every now and again. Not my terminology. Pen and paper is just the umbrella term. You know, GURPS, Cyberpunk, all the ones I can ever think of. Friday Night Firefight, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, all that stuff. That's all under pen and paper. That's why we have a term for it. Because yeah, Tales of Equestria would also qualify. Because, and we started doing this because for the longest time we had the Kleenex problem. Real quick. What is this? Yes, this is a tissue. But you would be amazed how many people would not call this a tissue. They would call this a Kleenex. Kleenex is not actually the term for this. Kleenex is a brand of tissue paper. But because Kleenex is so ubiquitous, a lot of people tend to refer to these as just Kleenex. Can I get a Kleenex, please? Even if you don't actually have one, right? So yeah, it's the same problem with D&D. An enormous number of people call pen and paper D&D. Because D&D is just so ubiquitous, right? And yeah, it's the same thing with Coke. It's the same thing with Q-tip. You get the idea. It's a pretty common problem. Anyways, I'm getting off topic again. I apologize. Okay, so they start talking about ogres and oubliettes, which sounds kind of awesome. Did you notice that if you pay attention, they actually show the character sheet and you can zoom in and see it. Apparently there are 4 stats. Sorry, which I wrote down somewhere. Where's my notes? Here we go. Oh, no, it is 3 stats. I was right. Intelligence, perception, and strength. And all of the base rolls for the stats are based on 3d6. Just random thing there. I also, I like how they I don't like how they immediately start with the nerd jokes. But I do like how those nerd jokes last less than a minute and immediately switch over to the benefits of D&D. I actually wouldn't be surprised if there was some push from Hasbro to kind of have that idea being a thing, because you know Hasbro owns Wizards, which owns Dungeons and Dragons. They talk about how it's all about playing someone who you aren't, getting to stretch out or try something new, and all about using your imagination to progress forwards. Now, they don't really try to sell you on it, but at the same time, they do a decent job of selling you on the concept. In fact, I actually know at least one person who watched this episode and got interested in P&P as a direct consequence of this. My niece. So, you know, it's anecdotal, of course, but I just thought I'd share that one. Real quick, hang on. Real quick. We do have to throw up a rarity crush, because Spike totally crushes on rarity. Unicorn princess mermaids, generally speaking. So, no, I'm not making that up. See, she's only a mermaid when she goes in the water. When she leaves, she's a unicorn who is also a princess. Again, not making that up. I will freely admit, oftentimes when I'm setting up for stuff for my own campaigns, the extant stuff, I will ask her, like, how do you think this should go? And mostly I'm just trying to engage her intellectually and creatively. But sometimes she'll come up with stuff that I'll use, like this crystal snail. Some of you may remember what that is. So, first of all, yes, I noticed the Skyrim helmet on Sir Biggins. Let's just get that out of the way. I also noticed he's a unicorn. S.A. Ross already mentioned that in chat, but I do have that here because, well, that's the second time now that he is envisioned being a unicorn. Which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. I mean, think about in real life how many times people are like, oh man, I wish I had superpowers. I wish I could have telekinesis. I wish I could shoot lasers. I wish I could fly. I wish I could be invisible, right? I wish I could teleport, right? It's a really common concept. And yeah, it makes perfect sense that someone, especially someone like Big Mac, who is a very large, strong, not super precise person, would want to have unicorn powers and thus have that kind of precision, telekinesis, etc. Yeah, I think telekinesis would be extremely useful on a day-to-day, everyday kind of environment sort of thing. Just saying. I'd still take teleportation over it, though, because that's incredibly useful and overpowered. But moving on. So, they have a decent setup, too. Do you notice they got the board, they've got the little... Yeah, they even gave his magic a color. I noticed that. That's later, though. It reminds me of something I used to do. Sorry I keep going off on segues, but this episode hit a lot of points that hit my own past here. One of the things I used to do when I was GMing in person for people who were physically present is you'd hit the craft store and just buy stuff that you can use. You know, get pipe cleaners, you know, of different colors, and you could have those to represent spells or effects or terrain. Get those little fuzzy ball things, or like the beads. It's a really common thing, you know, like the decorative beads, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, poker chips, yep. Just get all kinds of stuff to use on the table to demonstrate things. Just kind of reminded me of that. Moving on. So, real talk for a second. Spike is being very tolerant here. This is the worst part of the episode for me. Because Discord's being a dick. To put it as bluntly as I possibly can. Well, I've played players. I've played with and I've played over players like that as a GM and a fellow player. I said I'd share a story, and I've pulled one out just specifically for this moment. Back in the day, I was at a convention with several people, including my sister and my niece, as well as Third, and we were playing a module. Now this, to date this a little bit, for those of you who know what that means, this was actually before Out of the Abyss came out. In fact, this was the lead-up event to Out of the Abyss. I'm not going to give you all the details, but, you know, Wizards likes to do build-up events which are partially canon and can affect other things. It's really cool. The point is, we were playing at one of those events. No, this was after Tyranny of Dragons. Again, this was the build-up to Out of the Abyss. Anyway, so we're doing that. We're running around, and there's like this demon goat. I can tell you bits of the story, you don't care. The relevant point is there was a player there who was being like Discord is. Who was actively just, this is stupid. This is frustrating, and wasn't playing along with the rules. And actually attacked my sister in character at one point just because he was bored. Now, I've actually told this story before, and I'm not going to tell the whole story. It's actually more wholesome than you'd think, because I ended up meeting this player later and whatnot. But the point is, he was a dick, and actively did everything he could to lower the enjoyment level of everyone else at the table the entire time. Sound familiar? These kind of players are, in my experience, quite rare, but that's because I usually only encounter them in situations like at a convention. In this specific case, what actually happened, because again, I found this guy later and we ended up talking about this, he had been dragged to that table by his dad and his brother. They were super into D&D. He was into Magic the Gathering. So he was being a dick, right? And yeah, he was dragging the whole experience down. And that is exactly what Discord's doing. And it's bad, you know, negative to story. You know what I mean? I don't have anything else to add to this section. It's actively the worst part of the episode. I cast it anyways because this game is stupid. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share a thought I had. And I want to share it now because it's going to come up later. There's a value in limitations. Not just creatively, I mean in terms of fun. How many of you, I believe you, Darth Medora, I'm sure several people have. How many of you have played a board game? No, not one of those crappy ones we were talking about, like an actual board game, like, you know, Catan, or Power Grid, or, God, there's like dozens. Sheriff of Nottingham, like, right? Shadows over Camelot. There's the Warcraft board game. Don't play that. It's terrible. Now, allow me to share something that's going to sound weird, and I'm going to describe this very particularly because half the time when I explain it, most people don't understand what I mean. You don't... there's a difference between what you can do and what you are limiting yourself to do when it comes to design. In a board game, you can do whatever you want. You can take those pieces and just fill out the board and say, here, I've connected all these railways, or I have all these resources and I'm just going to pull the whole resource deck. You can do that. That is something you are capable of doing. Now, you're not supposed to because there's rules in place. But I bring that up because so many people don't understand that distinction between the two, between what you are allowed to do, what you physically can do, and what you should be doing per the rules of the game. The whole point of the rules of the game is to apply limitations creatively in order to make it so that it's more interesting and it engages you. Yeah, sure, you could literally win any board game in seconds by just saying here and tablet and saying you're the winner, right? I could sit down and play Lords of Waterdeep right now and just pull the point marker and just plunk it down on the 200 mark and say, there you go, I win. Nothing prevents me from doing that. But that's not very fun, is it? The whole point of those rules and good board games is the creative usage of those limitations to force you to do things in a specific manner and do things as specific problems, or not problems, sorry, I was me reading and talking at the same time, in specific manners so that you work your way through it and then can win or lose legitimately, right? Now, what's doubly funny is those limitations are not technically the ones set by the actual board game. Oh, they might be. And usually the board game just serves as the basis for those limitations. But the number of house rules and custom rule sets that players use is gargantuan. I will freely admit, for example, that even when I play something like Exploding Kittens, it's much better than it sounds. That's a good party game, by the way. Even when I sit down and I play Exploding Kittens, we actually have a house rule for that. And it's because it's not in the rules, but we agree, we as a group have agreed, it's better. It is better to change that rule around in that matter. But we still agree on that. We still come to a consensus. We're all on the same playing field, all on the same board. We're all there for the same reason. We are there to have fun. And that may involve engaging our minds, or it may involve engaging our imaginations, or it may involve just having a good time with our friends or family members. But we're all there with the same purpose. Now, I bring this up because it's going to come up later. But I want you to think about a being who can do this, and how much value there would be for a Q-like entity to limit themselves for fun. Think about it. This is another reason why every now and again someone's like, oh, you don't really want Q-like powers, you'd get bored. No, I wouldn't! Because I know how to have fun. Because I've studied design. And because I understand the value of limitations. Now, Discord, of course, just kind of starts doing whatever, right? Which is Discord's purview. To drag this back to the episode for a second here. So he teleports them off to something, and we see Josephine Baker. Did you catch her there, by the way? No bananas. No banana skirt. What's funny is, while Discord's just kind of being Discord there for a moment, what's amusing about that section is they have just a second or two of something that would be engaging and could have been a whole plot thread by itself. How many of you have ever been in a position where you've had these friends who like this and these friends who like this, and you've figured out a way to merge the two to actually have fun at the same time in a group? I'm going to raise my hand on that because I've done that dozens of times in my life. But setting up a D&D table at a nice club, you know, so that people can enjoy the music and the jazz and the drinks while playing D&D is actually something I have set up for people before. I didn't drink, of course, because I don't like alcohol, but you get the point. Hey, we can go play D&D. No. Just random thoughts. Moving on. Then, finally, at the 14-minute mark, the whole episode has been below average, I would say. And that's me being nice. 14 minutes of just whatever. And all of a sudden, the last 7 minutes of the episode suddenly becomes amazing. It sounds familiar. Because now they do the holodeck thing. Now, I wanted to talk about this briefly, too. For those of you not aware of what a holodeck is, don't worry about it. But for those of you who are aware of what the holodeck is, allow me to share something here. The holodeck is a tool that was designed to save money. Damn it, S.A. Ross. I mean, I would, Weouts. But I'm serious. That was the purpose of the holodeck. From a real-life perspective, they could reuse sets from other shows, reuse props from, like, historical pieces or other shows. In other words, it was literally cheaper. If you go and do a Dixon Hill episode on Star Trek TNG, that actually saves them money. Because all those sets and all those props and all those costumes already exist. The expense is done, so it doesn't add to the budget. Now, this had to happen for TNG. This is why holodecks became a thing in TNG. Because, this is going to sound strange here for a second. Because they wanted holodecks earlier, but they didn't have the budget. And then they needed holodecks in TNG because they didn't have the budget. No, really. Holodecks as an idea is something they've been bouncing around since forever. They played with it in TAS, that's the animated series. We'll talk about that later. And then, they get to the TNG stuff. And for those of you who don't remember, TNG Season 1's budget was so threadbare and so tight that in many cases they couldn't afford the $50 to pay an extra to say a line. Not joking. So they had to have the holodeck to save money. Why is this all relevant? Because the holodecks are usually not used to good effect because of their core purpose. There are exceptions, of course, but statistically speaking, in TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise, for some frickin' reason, the holodecks are usually just a way to save budget. Now, there are exceptions to that. But I bring that exception thing up because despite the fact that we all think of the holodeck as the, go on the magic box illusion room thing, it's usually not used to that effect. Because it's expensive to do that. It's difficult to do that. It costs time and money and effort, and it's live action, so it's going to look like crap unless your tech is really high advanced, which it certainly wasn't back in the day. But wait! This is an animated show. Ironically, a holodeck is a much better idea on an animated show. Oh, it won't save you budget. In fact, it'll probably cost you more. But the amount of things you can do creatively with the holodeck in an animated show are much higher. The ceiling is way, way, way higher. And there's so much more they could have done. Which leads me, of course, to this episode. They do several things just in the first few seconds of them entering the holodeck of Discord's pocket dimension that is supposed to portray the ogres and oubliettes thing. Because, and I'm actually watching some of the stuff they're doing and thinking about what it would cost and take to do similar effects on TNG or on DS9. And I'm thinking, God, that would just be insane and that would look terrible. That would look so fake. You could see the strings for that thing and just stuff like that, right? It's a damn shame that, to my knowledge, they never returned to this idea because this is a great idea. And of course, for the same reasons that a holodeck is useful, it is a tremendous creative tool. There's so many different stories you can do with the holodeck, other than, the fact that it breaks for the week. Anyways, I just keep going on segues for this, or sidebars for this, I apologize. This then leads to Discord being the GM. Yeah, you could take the Alamo on camera instead of constantly... You'll notice, by the way... I'm sorry, you got me on the topic now. DS9 actually got around this issue by referencing holodeck stuff without showing it. Now, obviously, they did show some holosuite stuff in DS9, the baseball episode, for example. But they constantly reference the holosuite episodes and activities that are going on off-camera, like the freaking Battle of Britain, which, of course, they couldn't possibly show. And that was their answer to that. That was their solution to that, which is not a bad solution. But again, animated. Moving on. So Discord is an interesting GM here. I want to say he's an awful GM, but that's not fair. Because he's just a particular variety of GM. And there's a validity to this type of GM. That is, GM versus player. Now, I actually know someone personally who is a GM like this, who's actually good at it, too. The whole point is they want to defeat the player, and if they're good at it, let's say if they're a good GM, they actually also want the player to defeat them. That's why I say the friend of mine is actually a good GM versus player GM. Because of the fact that he will deliberately make sure that there are ways to defeat him. Ways to get out of his traps, ways to get through his puzzles, and ways to defeat his enemies. If he just kills them, well, that's not fun anymore, is it? Yeah, right? It's like, all right, bring it, you know? He thinks of it as a versus. It's a PvP thing, basically. And as long as everyone at the table is on board, that's fine. Remember what I talked about earlier? We all are there for the same goal. And so if we all agree with the same rules... Either way, he pushes them. He does this because he's pissed, of course, and he's, you know, mocking them, but whatever. And then probably the only moment of this show that actually made me laugh. And soon I will make Rarity my bride. I mean, Schmerity. Sorry. This is when they tell after showing, oh, we only invited you because we felt bad for you. Now, the one thing that really helps salvage this episode, other than the cool holodeck sequence, is there's a degree of, for lack of a better way to call it, heart on display here. Named Tizara. I named my heart Tizara. It's very strange. Yeah, you nerds feel bad for me. The point is, the idea of inviting people to play tabletop, whether board or P&P, is a good thing. After all, the whole point is those kind of activities are social by design. They are intended to be played with a group of people who are all there for the same reason. A whole group of people who deliberately limit themselves in order to have fun, as long as they all agree on the rules. This is, I think, the theme of this episode. I actually think it's unintentional. I think this is one of those unintentional themes. But I think this is the primary theme of this particular work. The idea of creatively limiting yourself, along with other people who similarly do so, in order to enjoy. This is why I went on that whole tangent earlier, because the episode ties it up here. Then they go and play on the holodeck. I like to think that they do that regularly from now on. Again, I haven't seen past Season 7, but I'd like to think that they just get together and do ogres and oubliettes periodically, because, you know, hey... And Discord's like, Pah! They have the whole holodeck thing, and that, because that would be kind of awesome. Maybe every Thursday, you know, something like that. Side note, I love Discord's Legolas hair. Did you catch that? And yeah, so what's that? And yeah, Dash and Pinky play regularly, of course. Because Twilight's like, and Rainbow's like, hell no, I want in on that. And of course, Rainbow plays a rogue. And if you don't know why, it's a kind of a P&P joke. But let me just tell you about my gritty and dark backstory that will... I'm sitting in the corner, drinking a mug of ale with what's left of my horrible, terrible thought. I mean, she's totally a rogue. She's totally a rogue. It fits. And of course, Pinky would be a bard. Duh. Come on. But of course, we don't see what Twilight would be. I think we all know the answer to that. She would be an artificer. Let's see. She would be an artificer. Applejack. Let me think. Applejack's kind of... She would be a fighter. Fluttershy would be the barbarian. Or druid. I like the idea that she'd play a barbarian more. It fits a little bit more to me. And of course, we all know that Starlight would be a sorceress. Oh, I forgot about Rarity. What would Rarity be? So Rarity would either be a wizard, the most creative class, or druid, which is the other most creative class. No, really. Druid is by definition the catch-all class. Everyone says, you know, bard is the average. No. Druid is the catch-all class. Druid can do everything. Why would Starlight be a sorcerer? Because power! I have no idea what Starlight would be, actually. Yeah, Druid is actually hard to play properly. Oh, yeah, there you go. Sunburst would be a sorcerer. There you go. Yeah, I can turn nature against you while summoning animals, while healing people, while damaging you, while being a bear. That's a Druid. You can just do that. And you can specialize in any one of those things, but you can do all of those things. Anyways. I'm not sure. And now you got me thinking, what would Starlight be if she wasn't going to be a sorcerer? Oh, duh. She'd be a fighter. I just noticed nobody's a fighter. And you're probably thinking, what? But hear me out for a second. The whole point of fighter is that, I know everyone thinks fighter and they think, you know, swords and armor and smashing things. That's actually not what a fighter is in terms of gameplay. A fighter is the make your own. It is the customized class. It's, what do you want to play? You know, a really, really good archer or a, you know, someone who has excellent skill with tripping someone or someone who is designed for charging combat or all that stuff. It's all about customization, right? Now, obviously, there's no magic involved, but... Anyways, point being. Yeah, it's the Swiss Army knife. That's exactly right. There's so many different ways you can play a fighter. It's actually silly. Whip fighter for life, just saying. Trixie? Yeah, see, honestly, I think Trixie would probably want to wish fulfillment being a powerful mage. Like, I could see that. I mean, she's already magically inclined, but I could see her wanting to be someone who's, like, really powerful magically. So, Trixie would be a warlock. Well, think about it. Fell blast! Fell blast! Anyways. Sorry, if you haven't played Warlock... Warlock is probably the most damage per turn that you can do, but only in very short bursts and at great cost. Blast! Anyways. Yeah, teacup! Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Alright, we've rambled enough. We have a second episode to cover here. So, make sure you vote if you haven't. Remember, that's cutting off very soon. Probably in like an hour or so. Oh, we need to rate the episode, right? Yes, I have, Eclectic. I was only introduced to it recently, but it's awesome. Yeah, so let's rate this sucker. So here's the thing. The first part of the episode is, in my opinion, hang on, average. Then Discord's a dick. That lowers it a step. And then we have the holodeck section and, you know, the heart I mentioned at the end, which I think honestly averages it back out to yellow. That's my take on it. What do you all think? And I need to refresh my screen as usual. Refresh. There we go. Is there a seductress class? Sorcerer, bard, rogue would be your seductress classes. See, the problem I'm having with this episode is that, objectively speaking, that's probably the wrong word. Yeah, exactly, Raskor. Like, the core construction of the episode is not great. This is not what I would call a good Discord episode. Except at the same time, it is an awesome Discord episode when it gets there, and that's why I'm hesitating. Part of the problem is only 1/3, literally, 14 minutes, 7 minutes, 1/3 of the episode is awesome. The rest of it's just kind of below average. That's why I'm sitting here going, And again, I'm probably personally biased because not only do I like D&D, since I've been playing it since I was 6? No. 7. 7 or 8, somewhere in that range. But also the fact that, you know, the holodeck thing is awesome, and, you know, the embracing thing at the end is awesome. And like I said, they do a good job of getting across the idea of the social gameplay and why that's a good thing, so... Honestly, yeah. I think if they had bothered to readdress the ratios, if it was 1/3, 2/3 instead of 2/3, 1/3, I think this would be a better episode. Spend 1/3 of the episode on Discord being unable to just be honest and having issues with this and being like, ah, and then finally it's like, ugh. And then the last 2/3 of the episode are actually focused on the benefits, like have some cool interactions, have the holodeck sequence, have more holodeck sequences, you know, rather than just, hey, that was cool, let's do it again. Have that develop into something and show just more of the nature of that kind of social interaction, and just another side of friendship, for lack of a better way to put it. That's what I would have done anyways. It removes the crisis point from the end and pushes it further forward, but I'm okay with that. Especially with the Discord episode. There's no crisis here anyways. Anyways, sorry. I'm gonna go with average. Which means, so far, Nick Confalone, who wrote this episode, has not done any episode below average. Oh, and while we're here, some of you may or may not have noticed another addition to the spreadsheet. So this... I'm debating if this qualifies as a Discord-focused episode, a Spike-focused episode. See, I can't call this a Big Mac-focused episode. It would be Spike or Discord. I could do both, because it's not that hard to say both. It's like Sean over there. Like, I don't know where to put him, you know what I mean? For the hell of it, I like to do little things, just fun little factoid statistic things for the end of shows that I cover. I've decided to keep track of how many episodes are centric on which characters. And I already have a visual graphic in mind for how I'm going to display this when we get to the end of the Streaminations. Yeah, I feel like this is a Discord episode which is starring Spike. I'm comfortable just saying this is a Discord episode and leaving it at that. Anyways, with that being stated, let's go ahead and chop off.